federal agents announced they found a missing teenage girl from Arizona living in the camp.
Police has previously recovered homicide victims in the jungle that had been burned in pits as a way of disposing of the bodies.
It is known as the Jungle and covers 21 acres of land between Pacific Avenue and Martin Way, just north of I-5.
What we saw here today is shocking. It is easily one of the worst homeless encampments that I've seen in years of covering them here in Washington.
Washington's biggest decisions are made here in Olympia, but just minutes from the state capitol, another reality exists. Hidden in the woods between Olympia and Lacey is a sprawling homeless encampment known as the Jungle. According to the city of Olympia, hundreds of people have been living here. I grew up on this part of town. As a kid, addiction and homelessness was just part of everyday life. But still I wanted to understand this place and how we got here. So Bailey and I are heading into the jungle to find out what life is really like inside one of Washington's largest unsanctioned homeless camps.
Jolene, I'm Bailey. Tell me about what kind of work you do.
I do a lot of work in the community for outreach. I started volunteering at food bank, but I really am involved in the jungle community. I came from this community. I was homeless about 6 or 7 years ago myself, and I really struggled with my addiction. And the people that are here are actually the same people that helped me push through that. They helped pull me through in a few bad places I've been. They kept me alive. And I feel like now that I'm in a better place, I have the ability to give back and show them a better way.
Over the years, the jungle has also become the scene of deadly violence, serious crime, and heartbreaking loss, making it one of the most controversial places in the region.
For the 2 years I was homeless, most of my friends didn't even realize I was homeless because I was taught how to keep myself alive. But while I was here, I heard at least 3 girls being raped. I know it from my childhood. I heard it. And it's like, what do you do in those situations when you're by yourself and you can't, like, how do you, and at the point the cops won't even come in. You know, at that point the cops were at the point where they said, if we don't have at least 3 officers, we won't even enter the facility.
Police have investigated murders, shootings, brutal assaults, and countless overdoses here.
I think that the most really traumatic incident that happened here that kind of shook everyone was the girl that came in here 6 months ago. She came to return a bike, and the person she came to return the bike to, I believe their friend had overdosed, and they blamed her for the overdose because whatever the reason was, and they decided to jump this girl, and a group of 8 people jumped this girl, and they stomped her face in, and they put a gun in her mouth, and they beat her with a gun.
Somehow another person stepped in, pulled her away from the attackers, and helped her escape the camp. Bleeding and badly injured, she made it onto Martin Way, where passing motorists called 911.
And those kind of things, they do resonate. And then the telephone game happens in the community, and everything gets blown out of proportion. So I think that really scared a lot of people. Yeah. There was also the incident about the gentleman that got scalped a while back. I heard about that. That was kind of a shocking thing. And then they lit his tent on fire, I believe.
The most notorious crime that happened here was of a young girl named Maria Hines, who was only 20 years old. Like so many other people in Olympia struggling with homelessness, she spent time in the encampments around Olympia. Then in March 2022, someone walking near Martin Way made a discovery no family ever wants to hear about. Maria's body was found hidden in a wooded area. Investigators later ruled her death a homicide. Years later, detectives were still asking the public for information that could help solve her murder. Maria's story isn't the whole story of the jungle, but her death is a reminder that life inside a large, unsanctioned encampment can also be dangerous. Even today, the stories coming out of the jungle continue. While we've been filming this documentary, federal authorities searched this encampment looking for a missing child from Arizona.
Are there a significant amount of women and children?
There are women and children. Today, when I was handing out popsicles, a pregnant lady came forward and said, hey, I got some babies in the back, and my daughter's sick, and I gave her more popsicles than everyone else, obviously. But yes, there definitely are children and pregnant people here. They definitely stay hidden. for the most part. They don't come out during the non-profit feedings and stuff like that. They generally have like their partners or someone else come up and get food for them. They know better than to be.
Reporting?
They're worried about they're worried about reporting. They're worried about getting in trouble because they're not being given the resources they need to get the help. And if they reach out for the help, they're just going to be put in a category that they're neglecting their children. And
Their family's
it's kind of
broken up.
they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, so at least they're together here.
You know, yeah.
Washington has one of the worst homeless crises in America. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 31,500 people were counted experiencing homelessness in 2024, the third highest total of any state and a homelessness rate far above the national average. Here in Thurston County, nearly 1,000 people were counted homeless on a single night.
Most of the people out here are my family. We're all each other has.
We want to close these homeless encampments.
As Olympia and Lacey struggled over how to respond, one thing both cities appeared to agree on was that the unincorporated area between them was where many people could stay. As camps inside both cities were cleared, 2 encampments continued to grow: the Jungle and an RV camp across the street on Ensign Road. Along Martin Way are low-income apartments, homeless housing, liquor stores, and other businesses that serve people struggling with addiction, mental illness, and poverty. Long before the Jungle became one of Washington's largest unsanctioned homeless encampments, this area had already become a crossroad for many of the community's biggest social challenges.
They don't want to live like this. They came out here to find a sanctuary away from the stress of the streets and the craziness of the people on the streets. And it's just kind of being pushed into the jungle from the streets because Olympia is trying to clean up the streets. You know, where else are they going to go? They keep pushing them out of Percival Creek so they can't go over there. This is the only place left. It's the only place left. And then what's going to happen if we push them out of here? Where are they going to go? Back to Percival Creek? Back to downtown? Back to the shelters that are already overrun and have not enough resources?
Yeah.
That is not the answer. That is not the solution that's going to work. It's only going to make it worse.
We have had a situation here in Olympia before, back in 2021, where we had to close an encampment, and we saw what it did and how it scattered people throughout the community, and it's just not a viable solution or approach that works. And so what we rather do is keep them centralized in one location, which also makes it easier for service providers to provide assistance to the people who are there when they're in one location.
As the crisis has grown, so has the impact of highly addictive drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamine. Outreach workers say overdoses have become an increasingly common part of daily life.
The couple days we've been here, we've seen a lot of people show up for food, water, things like that. Do people show up and offer services as far as treatment, mental health?
They say they
do. They do outreach? Because I haven't seen.
They say they do, but the outreach that they do, they'll show up when someone's in like a crisis and say, hey, do you want help? They'll help them through an overdose, but if the person says, no, I don't want help, then they just walk away. And who knows what happens to that person? In another hour, they could go back through another overdose because the fentanyl or the Narcan wears off.
You know, like I remember there was one time there was a stack of methamphetamines that a few of my clients had tried, and they were strictly, you know, meth users. And they all went into a unit and they started smoking, and one of them just overdosed.
Yeah.
And the other 2 continued smoking.
Yeah.
And one of them is relaying this story to me, and I go, why did you keep smoking? And they said, because it seemed like a pretty good hit.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, you know?
Yeah.
But that's like the mindset that we all have. And I've been there too. It's like nothing mattered.
Yeah.
Like, don't call me that my nephew's getting born. Don't call me that my sister's pregnant. Like, don't call me that my grandpa died. I don't want to hear about none of that devastating stuff. Yet you are. You're interrupting my high. You're interrupting my hustle. You're increasing my mental health. And I don't want to think about any of that because right now I just need to strategically figure out how I'm getting the next hit or the next pack of cigarettes, you know?
The drugs are not the issue. The lack of focus, the lack of people having something to do that inspires them is the issue. You know, it's the concept of like the rats in a cage, right? When you put rats in a cage and you give them nothing to play with and all they have is that cocaine water to drink and they hit that pedal as much as they can to get that dose until they die, that's what's happening here. But when you put those same rats with that cocaine addicted mindset in a rat park museum, they choose to play and interact than use the drug. And that's what's happening here. They want something to focus on. They want something to be productive. They want to feel like they're part of a community, like they're part of something, like they're accepted. They're just trying to find a place to be accepted, and this is the most social norm that they have. Everyone's handing out needles, everyone's giving them drug kits. It seems like this is the place to be. When kids are lost, they don't know where to go. This is the place to be. Like, what do we expect when we give them the tools to be the addict and then say, no, that's bad?
Right.
Then they feel shamed for the choices that we gave them in the first place.
Yeah.
And how do they ask for help?
And I think the challenge is like, we need to really start inviting people who lived in sanctioned and unsanctioned camps and say what's working and what's not working.
Are you offered housing, or is it just
No,
not really what you
I
want?
haven't been offered housing in the last 4 years. I was supposed to get housing 2 years ago, and which was kind of promised, but they kind of just went back on that.
One of the biggest misconceptions is that people can simply choose to go into housing. The truth is, Thurston County's supportive housing is full. Whether it's a tiny house village or a converted hotel like Maple Court, there simply aren't enough beds for everyone who needs one.
Is throwing money at it really the solution? Because it's not. There's no intentionality with that. We're just building and popping up all these places. You know, I know somebody had mentioned Maple Court. That's a new one. Everybody was excited about it a few years ago. I know when I left the site, I was certainly excited about it. And, you know, it's not turned out to be what it was supposed to be.
Right.
You know, and it's really disheartening because we're not only doing a disservice to the community at large, but also to the people we're serving. That's why I had to leave, because I have my own mental health struggles. I was in addiction for a long time, but I had to wonder how these services are really serving who I consider my people.
They need to know exactly where every single penny is going. This whole vagueness of we're giving a voucher to this company for this much and then they use whatever they want and then take the rest. Like, that vagueness needs to stop. They need to be very direct on this is how much money to the penny that we're spending on this housing, and this is what's going for it. These are the requirements to be followed up with this housing. Dollar for dollar, penny for penny. You know, if you don't follow through with these steps, then your funding will be taken away, and that needs to be clear as well.
Yeah.
We will help these people if they follow the steps, but they have to be responsible to follow through and make that clear to them, not just like, oh, we're going to help you, and then ditch them and not explain them.
Do they follow through and communicate with you, or do you
No,
have to
there's
kinda
not
count on
transparent
that?
at all.
No.
It's not transparent at all. They say a lot of things, and then you ask a lot of questions, and there's no answers to what you're asking.
Right. Kind of leads
No
you in a
transparency.
circle.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, and then they gotta ask somebody else. They can't answer any questions. There's a lot of money. You see a lot of things on the internet, you know, and they're responsible for a lot of people's health and all this other stuff. And they're just, I don't know, you know, it goes to a lot of staff and everything like that. But, you know, I sat and watched, you know, a lot of people get paid while I'm just sitting there. I'm like, what are we doing? I could do the same thing. Why don't they just pay us?
Right.
Well, we can get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, give you opportunity.
Yeah.
Create an opportunity with this.
That's why I say, yeah, there's a lot of lack of opportunities.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And to be a part of the community with the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to have far and few less resources here with outreach in an unsanctioned camp, because there's nobody just kind of like watching or monitoring, like, hey, you know, Bailey, did you check in? Do you need support?
Yeah.
Did you make it to your DSHS appointment? Like, how can I help you? Can I give you a ride? You might have an agency or a person who has goodwill in their heart to show up and then be able to get that task done, but it's not a consistency.
Right.
And so that's what you'll kind of see with the unsanctioned camp, but then you have people coming in feeding or providing like supplies or resources, just like kind of on an inconsistent basis. Yeah, just kind of popping up to feed the community.
Yeah.
And then at a sanctioned camp, what you'll have is that consistency.
The unincorporated area is also home to one of Thurston County's largest examples of sanctioned housing. Maple Court is a converted hotel that can house up to 125 people experiencing homelessness. Unlike many traditional recovery programs, Housing First does not require residents to be sober before entering the program. Supporters argue that stable housing gives people the best chance to rebuild their lives. Opponents believe requiring sobriety and treatment first. It's a debate that has shaped homelessness policy across Washington, and one that continues today.
My view is like the intentionality behind it. It's so case-by-case basis that, you know, like I've had a client who it has the mind of a 6-year-old, and he's taking down a smoke detector and he's tearing it apart. because of that, he gets kicked out. He's by far one of the most vulnerable individuals I've ever seen. You know, but where's the justice or where's the housing for that individual? He'll probably never get housed.
As we've worked to finish this story, the situation at the jungle has continued to evolve. Recent incidents, including a woman being severely injured after being struck in the face with a propane tank, along with reports of drug trafficking and the recovery of several high-powered assault weapons from the camp, have made headlines across the Seattle area.
2 men from the Seattle area will now spend 6 years in prison for crimes tied to a homeless encampment in Thurston County called the Jungle.
This is the latest act of violence in Olympia's jungle encampment. There have been prior murders in the camp, with police acknowledging a burn pit where bodies have been disposed of. Just this month, U.S. Marshals found a runaway teenager living here.
These recent headlines have added pressure on the city of Olympia to address the future of the jungle. Years of reports involving violence, assaults, and drug-related activity have fueled growing debate over what happens next. The city has announced an 18 to 24-month timeline before beginning the closure process. A timeline that has sparked debate among those who believe action should begin sooner.
The city government hears the community. We understand that people are frustrated, they're concerned, and we hear all of those things. We share those sentiments, and we are moving as fast as we can. And we'll continue to advocate for additional funding and getting more housing so that we can close this encampment as soon as we can.
What was it, the 10-day at-list name or whatever was done, the 10-day name list? I saw people bringing brand new couches in here and a mattress that was wrapped up, just bought from the store. Brand
just
new
because
mattress. Nobody's planning on leaving.
their future is like
Nobody's
in
planning
limbo,
on leaving.
so everybody's like, fuck, I'm gonna be as comfortable as possible, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And if like it's gonna be permanent here and not, because it's not in their control at all, you know, whether or not they move or not. You know?
I agree. There's nothing wrong with them being comfortable here, but it's very clear that nobody has the idea that they're actually going to be fully pushed out of here.
And even
the ones
if
that
they
want
are
help will
pushed
find
out
help,
of
but
here,
the ones
where's
that
it
don't
gonna
want to
go?
leave,
And then if
won't
they
leave.
do move, and say indoors, some people can't live indoors. I don't know if you get it, but they can't.
Yeah,
it's not for them. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Change is coming to the jungle. The city has announced plans to purchase the remaining privately owned land where much of the camp sits for $3 million, paving the way for closure of the jungle, the last unsanctioned homeless camp in Olympia. The purchase is part of the city's broader Housing First strategy to move people into permanent housing while connecting them with mental health, addiction, and supportive services. That leaves one question hanging in the air. Where will people go when this camp closes for good?
What are the rumors of this camp being cleared? Like, what have you been hearing?
I've been hearing that they're signing everybody up on a list, and then they're going to give them housing. They're going to keep them. So whether that be like a hotel that turned into like the residence.
Yeah. Have you seen that happen for anybody yet? Yeah. And have you been offered any of those services?
A few years ago, I was offered a townhouse.
Yeah.
But since then, there hasn't been too many people moving out of the tiny homes. They said that was emergency housing.
Right.
And it's 2 years later, 3 years, I'm going on 3.
Yeah.
So permanent.
Not much of a transition.
Permanent.
Yeah.
What comes next for the people who call this place home remains uncertain. Some will find housing, some won't. Some will find recovery, others may never get the chance. Until we find better solutions for addiction, mental illness, and poverty in America, places like the jungle will continue to be part of our communities.